Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ. And like this show being a seat of the pants live discussion about all things that inspire us in tabletop role playing games, uh, it also means that things like thumbnails and things of that nature just happened to happen at the last minute. So I apologize for that to you guys. Uh, Inspiration. The third episode of House of the Dragon, at the airing of this episode, extremely inspiring. So I can't keep it out of my mind. So I thought I would share it. Now, not spoilers. Maybe we may do spoilers by the end of the week, but I wanted to bring up um, a very classic topic in tabletop role playing game settings. Of course, like this show, we talk as if we're about to start our game or maybe at the end of a game session, and we just like to shoot the shit, right? And one of the things that is a classic conversation is X powerful fantasy, modern day sci-fi entity, power, resource is available. Why wouldn't that or couldn't that dominate everything? We've had this discussion before. Well, if there were powerful wizards in the world, why wouldn't they would just control the land? If there were dragons, everyone would be destroyed because the dragons would just dominate everything. And in our latest episode, they reinforced through episode 1 and 2 and 3 that not so easy. So in the beginning of this, I thought I'd do like a pro and con, basically argue for the dominance of dragons. And mind you, you can substitute dragon for anything. Dragons, undead, magic, alien invasion. I don't know, zombie infestation. You could name so many other things, and also argue in defense of, well, the common folk, the ones who have to live in a world where there are nothing but dragons or any other powerful entity, psychic powers, sorceress magic, wow, I don't know, a dangerous mutation or something of that nature. And usually, as most things go, things are never black and white. And what I love about the television show, and of course about the writing in the books, uh, although I have not read any of the books, it is many people are saying that there are these small details in the books and bring them in. And lastly, I do want to add in a little side note about House of the Dragon and George R. R. Martin and reinforce something about world building that reinforce something about world building. Very funny comment, posting it up, that just as George R. R. Martin is not shy about his influences, whether it has to deal with real life histories and things like that. Uh, we ourselves could and should borrow heavily from things that inspire us around us, or heck, just straight up, just steal the stuff from history and things of that nature and place it into our own worlds. Hey, got made it to Germany. Yeah. Member of the Scheiss Squad says, "Are dragons considered going nuclear? Because a lot of times you can talk to them and they're not automatically combat monsters, even the evil ones." They call it, yeah, I did that because many times, especially when other people talk about House of the Dragon, they talk about dragons being the nuclear option. In other words, dragons are hammers, not scalpels. There was even um, a movie called The Siege, in which it's the United States under attack by terrorists. It was simple. And there was a military commander played by none other than, oh, wow. I was about to say Mel Gibson. Die Hard movies. How did I forget his name already? Unfortunately, is suffering from a degenerative mental illness. Anyway, the actor that plays in the movie The Siege, he talks about the fact, he's like, listen, you don't want me militarizing American cities. And he warns everybody, like, I'm not a scalpel, I'm a hammer. I'll solve your problem. It just won't be pretty. And one of the things that are brought up in House of the Dragon that I love. So let's get into the problems. Bruce Willis, thank you so much. Wow, how did my brain just go? Like, it farts a lot, just right out of one ear, in one ear, and a nasty smell right out of the other one. Bruce Willis, who plays a surprisingly secondary role in the movie The Siege. It really wasn't about him, but he does specifically say, like, oh, I'll be effective, but you don't want me doing this thing. And the the reason why they call it the nuclear option is because, as powerful as real world nuclear, atomic, hydrogen bomb type weapons are, they're they're not as effective as we think they are. The fear of them is quite far more effective. Their existence, their fear, the intimidation that they bring is far more effective than their actual use. Their use is a hammer. It's a big blanket destructive force that doesn't have the ability to disseminate. It doesn't have nuance, and that is why dragons in House of the Dragon are related this way, compared to a bunch of people running around with crossbows and plate and chain armor and things of that nature. No, 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 no. It was before that. It was before that. Yeah, it was the Siege, one of the shitty no budget movies Willis starred in. Nope, 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 nope. No, no, it wasn't one of those. Oh, I don't think so. No, because he did things afterwards. Yes. Um, Yanking says, and like nuclear power, dragons change the way the world works. With dragons around, a castle is no longer an unbeatable scenario. Exactly. No, it was a real movie. The Siege was a real. It had a specified flow to it. Let's just say that it wasn't one of those those straight to streaming, straight to DVD movies that Bruce Willis punched out real quick, one right after another. No, 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 it wasn't anything like that. But yeah, nuclear power. Okay, so just in a television show, they go back to back with one of the issues. Many issues. These dragons. Now, mind you, these dragons are more like Dungeons and Dragons wyverns. They are animalistic, which really gives them a great. There's a great power play happening because we are already shown from the end of season one that dragons are like the proverbial pit bulls, cane corsas, presa canarios, giant sized dogs that, yeah, you think it's funny to have a chain around them and sick them on your neighbor, but the minute you drop the chain, they're going to go after the subject of their ire, and um, it's they end up killing someone. Some people say by accident. I say no, it wasn't an accident. It's human arrogance to think that they could actually control uh, to the inch a dragon's uh, motivation. When the larger dragon was chasing around and teasing and bothering the smaller dragon bit back. Of course, biting back was breathing fire from one dragon onto the other one. But that's what's going to happen. And if you sick one dog after another, they're going to go after their instinctually. They're going to do what they can do. The fact that one dragon was like 5 times the size of the other one, well, you see what happens. The Yanking says it's true. Nuclear weapons have not prevented war, but it's turned war into something scary. In the old world, war was just, well, good. Right, right, right. It was at least we could claim it was equally balanced, equally yoked, if that makes sense. And of course there's always the argument of, well, if we use one big bomb, it will prevent the deaths of it will prevent the erosion of so many lives to get to the end result. And that's always been, since their inception, it's always been an issue, a problem, a hey, we could stop this conflict if we just perform this really heinous uh, despicable act that will save the lives of so many other people in war, and that is a very difficult thing to rationalize because on one hand you say, well, I am preventing needless deaths. I'm preventing this fantasy world, preventing thousands, tens of thousands of deaths. But then on the other hand, it's like, child murder and stuff like, do you really want to do that? No. Yeah. Yeah. Shice is like, yeah, okay, just wondering because I'd never heard of it. Most of been for the time I stopped watching movies. Yeah. Because I like Willis. He was the Siege is actually a good movie. It really is. It didn't get much airplay. It dealt with it asked a larger question, but good movie, good movie. Yeah, Shai says, dude, if it weren't for nukes, we'd have World War I scenarios over and over again. Yeah, with see, and that's you prove my point, right? In a very logical way. Yeah, yeah, with jillions of dudes getting mowed down, carpet bombings, fire bombings. Yeah, we would chemical warfare. I know today there's a lot of talk about uh, using viruses and bacteriums and diseases as weapons. They're horrible militarily wise. They're horrible weapons. uh Terroristically, sure, but you can't control viruses and bacteria and things like that. But that's always been a uh tinfoil thing, use like, oh, this X government released, Y disease from Z location to control the population or something. And it's like, everyone knows that stuff will always bite you in the ass. So it's not really good unless you're crazy. Yeah, N King says if any of those nukes go off accidentally, we'd be lucky to have World War I scenarios again. Yeah, yeah, and like the House of the Dragon, the exact same thing happens, right? One of the dragons does a does a unpredictable action. Honestly, it was not unpredictable. It was irresponsibility in the case of the characters that are involved and the leadership that put those people in position of dragons in the first place. And to make things worse, we have a feudal society, which is rulership by genitals, which is horrible to have a government ruled that way. No, you're okay there, NK. No, you guys are perfectly fine in your comments and on point too. And yeah, having a feudal system ruled by genitalia is just it's horrible, which means that you don't even get your best and brightest controlling dragons. You hope to get your best and brightest telling young folks and people with uh, personality and ego issues that control dragons. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so not only do we have dragons that aren't quite controllable in the way we think they are, we also have to feed them. And I like the little bit of knowledge we get in House of the Dragon that the dragons really don't. I hear you. Um, the dragons really don't feed when they are sleeping and resting, but when they are active, they gorge themselves. And where's the food come from? How do you feed them? What if you haven't made arrangements to have them fed in whatever manner the dragons are fed in the first place, right? What a classic scenario in fantasy. Dragon needs to eat. Innocent people are marched up to Dragon's Haven to feed them, or the dragon swoops down into the countryside to eat. Uh, Player character heroes need to go up to slay Dragon because Dragon is causing so much harm and such. So true, true, yeah. And Adeline says still beats rule by combat, and Yeah, it's still, I don't know. I mean, you could make the case that one dragon can cause so much death and destruction on its own. It's kind of the same thing, and no one really gets the place to raise their sword up and defend themselves in their manner. There's also a little bit of there's a I don't know what's a good way to say this. Te- Testosterone, um, uh, life and death by your own choices. Despite the fact that there's lots of death, at least there's a little bit of honor involved in war, at least on the base level individuals, that at least they got to decide how and when and why they died, even though it's really not that glamorous. But it's better than just standing out in the field and being blasted with fire and you just had no choice to defend yourself. At least the individuals, as was on display at the very beginning of this episode 3, you get to see the Hatfields and McCoy battle that led to death and destruction for, in what many would say, no good reason, right? Drew says, so dragons are then something the rulers use to compensate for something? Of course. For their own inadequacies? Oh hell yeah. Oh hells yes. Yeah, imagine a guy from Boogie Nights becoming a leader of nations. Well, the guy from Boogie Nights today would have at least 1 6 out of the 666 that women are looking for today. So maybe one of the 4 6s, something like that. You guys figure out what the sixes mean. In looking for a suitable a suitable prime mate today when it comes to hetero relationships. Yeah, you guys are so silly. It's interesting how things have changed. In ancient times, a ruler who didn't lead their army might be seen as cowardly. Today, with bombs and drones, president on the front lines would just be stupid. Yeah, although, you know what? Something has to be said for the person that gets their hands dirty. You know, in I think we would all agree that if our immediate bosses and bosses' bosses and bosses' bosses would were frontline workers and did the thing that we get frustrated when we go to work, I think we'd have more respect for them, uh, despite the fact that we probably should change the way we do things. Shice is like, which guy from Boogie? Oh, never mind. Yeah, yeah. An excellent award-winning movie about the drama that goes on from people who are involved in the prawn industry. Um, Something else that dragons have an issue with in House of the Dragon. Of course, you've got to feed them. They they are housed and they're fed. And something else that one character mentions that I love that you mentioned, because I brought this up about the proverbial dragons would rule the world, wizards would rule the world, necromancers would rule the world, alien invasion, there's nothing we could do. And one of our main characters mentions having sat down with dinner with across from a possible enemy. And the one character is like, no, food, no thank you. I don't want to be poisoned. And the person that in uh, opened their arms and invited them in the castle was like, oh, no, no, no. You don't have to be so rude. I mean, the food's not maybe not up to your standards, but it's not poison. And the one character mentions, well, if you want to get at a dragon rider, poison is probably the way you would go. And I always thought of that. Yeah. 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 Nobody could do that much coke and still get it up. Yeah. Unless he was a mutant. Anyway, the I always thought that the idea that, well, if there's 20th level wizards, they will control everything. If there were necromancers, they would control everything. Is human beings are pretty ingenious when it comes to taking down uh, adversaries that are bigger, better, stronger, tougher than we are. And much like human beings have been able to defend ourselves and hunt ourselves after some of the most dangerous predators from around the world that weren't humans, and we are excellent at figuring out how to destroy other human beings, we wouldn't let dragon riders, wizards, dragons themselves, all these powerful entities go without some method of being able to take them out. And we would be stealthy, conniving, deceitful, backstabbing. Yeah, we would poison them. If there were dragons somewhere, we would absolutely try to poison them. We would try to backstab them, bribe, cajole, uh, anything that we could, instead of trying to confront powerful entities up front. The best way to go at them is from their back, to um, go after their food sources, some way to confuse them, to get them to go after each other, using pheromones, whatever the mating rituals are, uh, things of that nature. Oh, absolutely. When this main character says, "Yeah, I'm not eating that," it's there's more into it than what I'm describing. But to go after a dragon rider, is poison. You guys are so silly. Um, I think that would be the case. And in a weird way, let me go back to the N King's comment here. They even bring up the fact that there's a war council and they're arguing over the dispensation of dragons. Well, one member of the war council's like, let the dragons go. Like, either they bow to us or we burn them. Like, what's the point? Like, why are we beating around the bush here? We have dragons, they're afraid of dragons. And then others are mentioning the fact that, well, if you threaten them with dragons and or burn them with dragons, that's more of an incentive for them not to follow us when you take away their choices. In other words, it's like trying to punch someone in the face to make them your best friend. Yes, you'll get them to agree to it. No, they're not really going to be your ally. And then yet another person is bringing up the fact, like, you do realize if you send dragons, the enemy's going to also send their dragons. Like, these things aren't hidden. There are people who are monitoring the use of all these dragons, just like in our world. Every nation is most nations who have the capability of doing so are monitoring every other nation's um, movement of their nuclear weapons and other weaponry and things like that. We're all watching each other, and despite the fact that on the surface we can all be friends, we are watching where you're moving your most dangerous weaponry that could harm all the rest of us, and how you are using it and things of that nature. Yeah, all of our nuclear weapons that happen to be hidden underground, guaranteed they're being watched 24/7. Right? Yeah, the Yankee says if you start with dragons, you also can't step it up from there. That's true too. I mean, there is a castle supposedly within the Game of Thrones world. Harrenhal is the name of it, and in the books, it was known as like the undefeatable castle. It was completely impregnable, um, and in the histories, they didn't completely understand the power of the dragons, and of course the castle was attacked by having a dragon literally fly above the cloud level and fly directly down on top of the castle, not having to fly over the walls, even if they had weaponry that could destroy the dragons, and melted the castle to the ground. Mind you, this historic castle in Game of Thrones is also haunted, or has been known to be haunted, and that's a good little detail, I think, to add into it. Anon says, if I was a 20th level wizard, the last thing I'd want to deal with are people. Exactly. Exactly. Now, mind you, people who put themselves on pedestals and think of themselves as near godlike, yes, you may not want to deal with people, but you may want your people's people, your underlings, your lieutenants, your right hand individuals to deal with the lower folk. And we see in this kind of political, this House of the Dragon thing, that it's you giving an order, or you giving an incomplete order to other individuals that are below you. They might or might not follow those instructions. And a lot of people base their actions on the behavior of their leadership. And we really get to see the downfall of the gold, the white cloaks in this one on display. It's really good. It's very funny. Strange for House of the Dragon to have comedic moments, but you can really tell. Uh, we know ourselves that when we go to work, or some of us work for ourselves as entertainers. Not me, but I'm referring to you out there, member of the Shy Squad. Please check them out. That if the leadership does the do what I say, not as I do mentality, if they don't hold themselves up to a high standard, the people below pretty much fall into line. They're like, oh, if you're going to act that way, we're going to act the exact same way. And but I do like your comment though, that if you start with dragons, you can't go up from there, and that's also a fear as well. I mean, if you pull out your biggest weapon and your enemy is like, "Ooh, I survived a day, a second day, a third day, and I'm still not going," that can really empower the rebellious nature. And a lot of times, even with dragons and such, there's jealousies that go on. Envy and jealousy is a big thing as well. Many people want to have the best thing that you have, and the simple fact that you have something they don't can make an enemy that could be like a snake hiding in the grass, who simultaneously wants to cozy up next to you and live through your influence vicariously, while at the exact same time wanting to have the power to control, possess, and control the very thing that you do. And I love all these machinations. It's very well written, a surprisingly, refreshingly well written show. We're only into the third episode, even though each episode is over an hour long, so they're almost like these mini movies. And it really gives us the ability to take a look at what it means for some people to biologically, within the setting of House of the Dragon, to have this biological ability to bond with these dragons and all the people that are around them, going like having all the feels, as it were. The End King says, imagine a ghost dragon in the courtyard that's become a cave with the collapsed castle. You only see the glint of his eyes when all the lights are out. I like that. That's very um, that is extremely no kitty kitty. Uh, um, that's got a lot of flavor, a lot of theme to it. Especially if you like you said, like maybe there's sounds in the castle where the winds flow through the castle walls, and it sounds like the breathing of a dragon. Maybe there's like stonework or stone and woodwork when you walk along the floors. It always sounds like nails scratching across the stone or something of that nature. The idea that when the lights go out, you just see the pinpricks of the eyes of where a dragon's maw would be, and yeah, I love that. I love that idea. A very very thematic. Did she leave? Hey, Sophie. So, um, yeah, Anon says this is why hazing, as bad as it can be, is still a thing. Yeah. Hell, I mean, people still they use other terms for it, but people still do do that exact same thing all the time. Yes, Kitty, I understand. Does work as an entertainer? That's awesome. Yeah, you're like work as an entertainer. Let me put Luke. I gotta put this up there. Um, what are some other things that we find out in House of Dragon? Oh, that we can use for our world building. Okay, for those who do not know, George R. R. Martin, the writer of all of the Song of Ice and Fire, House of the Dragon, all that kind of stuff, um, has very publicly mentioned the fact that he's pulled from. There you go, Kitty. I know you want up there. Go, 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 go. There you go. Pulled from history, from pop culture, and used all of those events and put them into his fictional writing to create this greater world. Uh, if you are not from the United States, I'm sure there's an equal allegory to this uh, elsewhere, but in Game of Thrones, he's incorporated many historical events, and one of those is the Hatfields versus McCoys, and it's I believe in let me see Hatfields versus McCoys in let's see Game of Thrones, the Brackens and Blackwoods. That's it. Okay, so um, here in the United States, there's known as the Hatfields and McCoys. As a matter of fact, I am family friends with someone who is literally blood related to, I believe it's the McCoys. I believe it's the McCoys. Anyway, the Hatfields and McCoys feud literally continues till this day. Not in the same manner. It's very much like a pop culture kind of thing where people are proud of their connections to the Hatfields and McCoys, but the Hatfields and McCoys are a family that were at war with each other, seemingly from 1863 to 1891, and so on. And there's the whole show. A mini series was broadcast about it, and things like that. It's all history. And in Game of Thrones, the Brackens and the Blackwoods are exactly like that. And basically, they're at war with each other. They hate each other, and no one quite remembers why. It just keeps, it's just this feud that just keeps going on and on and on. And pulling from real histories, pulling from, here we go with inspirations, pulling from these things and incorporating them into our own world building. Uh, we've always heard the term, uh, reality is stranger than fiction. And sometimes some of the real things that we know about are actually, we don't have to do that much legwork. It's actually really cool to just take that and insert it into your world. And maybe you do have two factions, two clans, two families, or whatever, that have been at each other's throats for forever. Let's see what Wikipedia has to say, because Wikipedia is always correct. The Hatfield McCoy feud involved two American families from West Virginia and Kentucky area along the Tug Fork and Big Sandy River from 1863 to 1891. And it was basically a civil war between the two. And then it just began escalating. And then, of course, what happens is in real life, escalations happen. And as portrayed in this third episode of the House of the Dragon, it's extremely difficult to back down. One person, as we see with these families, the civil war that's happening, the small folk are suffering for it because the familial connections and biological connections with these families of Targaryens and Hightowers and so on and so forth spread around, that when blood is spilt, everybody now wants revenge for the blood that was spilt for their lost one. And then it keeps going back and forth because each person, it's what, Avenged Sevenfold. Yes, I know it's a band. It's Avenged Sevenfold. Hey, they took from me, I want to take from them twice as much. And it it's very difficult for one side or any of the sides to stop and go, let's just have peace. Because there's always going to be someone that takes it personal and is like, peace? Do you realize what I lost going up against you? Like, no, I'm gonna extract out of you all of my losses. I did the exact same thing with my contractor that replaced my roof and siding. I'm like, I paid you, you promised me work, you're not giving me my work back. I'm gonna extract all my value out of you. The Yan King says the Hatfields and McCoys, Montagues and Capulets. Yep. Yep. Chiefs and Raiders. Yep. Tupac and Biggie, Coke and Pepsi. So many blood feuds throughout history. I think that's very funny, but you know what? It's, to be honest with you, yeah, that's a real thing. I mean, I know Coke and Pepsi, but if we really used it for our world building, that could be a real thing. Like, which is better, elderberry wine or, I don't know, some other drink or something like that? And whichever you choose, the people who pick the other side may not like you for whatever reason. I That would be pretty humorous, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah, Tupac and Biggie. Which bar do you like? And you're afraid to answer because if you don't, you're going to get like there might be drive-by wagon shootings. I don't know. Pretty hilarious, but if you the sarcasm in my voice is making me think like, no shit, like this could be a real thing. Like I could imagine a real world building element really put into a game and people being like immersed into it. I'm feeling it. Yep. Chiefs and Raiders here. Hell, I'm in Ohio Valley. It's it's Ohio State and Michigan, the longest running college football rivalry in the United States. So yeah, and just mind you, this isn't a main point in the show. This is just simply, this is like flavor, if you really want to call that. This is real flavor. And imagine part of your nation where the policies have to travel through it and having to step on, being careful about stepping on eggshells when having to navigate this place simply by the drink that they have, the political faction they belong to, the greatest bards in the world, and who they think is the best. Hell, today, depending on what your favorite geekdom is, how many people have factionalized themselves by measuring. You guys know what I say. Don't measure your loves by all your hates. Hell, the actor that plays Kristen Cole in House of the Dragon, there are people who are making death threats at that dude. Like, really? Are you that immature that you literally can't tell okay, okay. The actor that plays Kristen Cole, people were finding the actor's social medias and sending death threats after that guy. Now, literally, you had to understand that this human being who was hired to play a role is an actor, and yet there are people still making death threats. Like, really? Shai says Biggie had way more songs I like. Yeah. I fall on the Biggie side too. Side note, please no wagon drive-bys with crossbows. Please don't do that. Anon says, to be fair, Pepsi did control the sixth largest navy at one point. Did they? Did they? In terms of shipping around the world, I could see that. Just like Walmart controls so much of Walmart, Amazon. Yeah, I like King. So imagine ruthless corporate warfare between two potion making companies. Wizard War. Oh, of course. They would, if they had factories, they would try to sabotage each one. If there were very rare components needed for alchemical processes. Some would try to gain as many as they could. I remember a podcast I was listening to about an underground faction trying to collect as many diamonds as they could and control the value and the possession of diamonds in a fantasy world, because diamonds were used for resurrection, and they wanted to curb the market on resurrections, which curbing the market on diamonds is a thing that's happening today. That's where ice road truckers came from. Yeah, the Enki says, "Remember the child who played Joffrey," which, strangely enough, from an art. This was an article from Screen Rant that I was reading. They were saying that that actor um, has reached out to the actor that plays Kristen Cole to talk about the fact, of having that kind of hate. No, no, Kristen. Let's see if I could spell it right. Is that how it's Sir Kristen Cole? Yeah, it's here it is. It's spelled Sir Kristen Cole. There it is. That's how I spelled the book. Pity about the Ohio State Michigan thing. Ohio's always been like a sister state to me. Yeah, there's a huge, you're not allowed to mention the word Michigan. They go around the city during before the Ohio State Michigan games and put red X tape over the M's around the city. There is a ban on saying the word Michigan. They just say that that it's that place upstate. It's the place above us. They use any kind of method they can without having to use the word Michigan, or they'll just say Michigan. It's crazy, mind you, it's a sports rivalry. But yeah, it's hilarious too. Like, for example, there's a hotel downtown, and one of the urinals, the hotel is Ohio State, the University of Ohio State themed, and in the men's room there's a urinal, and the urinal has a um, blue and maize colored urinal toilet that you can pee in. Uh, and if you know, you know. If you walked into the bathroom and you don't know anything about it, you're like, why is that? That's weird. They picked a strange color. That's why. Uh, as 1989 rolled around, the USSR, the USSR officially made Pepsi the sixth largest navy in the world by trading 17 submarines, a cruiser, frigate, and destroyer to the company, as well as several new oil tankers. Really? Really? I never knew that. I never knew that. Shice is like, oh damn, the rivalry goes way deeper than I thought. Fucking Michigan. I never anything remotely that insane about Ohio. Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, there's even a this is for a good cause. When Ohio State and Michigan, when it gets close to that game, and it always happens Thanksgiving weekend, 12 noon. And during that, leading up to that, there's a blood drive. Who will bleed more for their team? And each state tries to get as many people to donate blood, uh, simply because it goes that deep. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, my wife is a huge Ohio State fan. We will never have blue and yellow together as colors, ever, ever. It just doesn't work that way. But again, pulling from pop culture, if I can make a hard turn here, pulling from pop culture, and you are absolutely right there, Hunt. Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, Pulling from pop culture, we have ourselves a a group of royalty in Game of Thrones or Song of Ice and Fire and the whole nine yards, known as the Tullys. If I'm not mistaken, the Tullys live in a place known as the Riverlands, a land known to have many rivers in it. The Riverlands, easy enough. And the royalty are named after characters from the Jim Henson Company. Um, let's see. The What are all their thrones named after? It is. What are all their names? Grover, Elmo, Kermit, and Oscar are, of course, all real names, but it's hard to believe that the Tullys weren't so christened because of their famous puppet namesakes. The name of the son who came in between Grover and Elmo is at present unknown, but perhaps we can expect it to be Bunsen or Gonzo. So even even George R. R. Martin is not above a little side comedic element to name to literally place in his world building the names of royalty named after Muppets: Grover, Elmo, Kermit, and Oscar. And we sometimes in our as we suffer through our building disease, sometimes we take that stuff a little too seriously. That there isn't space to recognize and understand that we can have some comedy. We can even in a dark, horrific, um, grim, dark noir, super serious. Please stop grinning and laughing at my world building world because all of us are distraught with horror and violence in my world. Sometimes you need a little bit of a release valve. You need a little bit of humor and fun. Not that the characters are hilarious, but we all know that where the pop culture reference comes from. Yeah, and I says blue and yellow, so much for Ukraine. There are people here who absolutely positively fly the Ukrainian flag, and they are not really. Although I could put up, let's see, let's see, flag, and let's see here, and let's see. So if I were to share this out, so this is the Ukrainian flag, but this is are the Michigan colors. So yeah, one is blue and yellow. The other one is navy and maize. So so yeah, what it one is one, one's the other. And believe you me, living here in the Ohio Valley, they take that difference is a serious thing. It really is. You're trying to prevent comedy is a death sentence for your world. Exactly. Listen, players are going to find comedic elements in your world building no matter what. You might as well just embrace it. How many times the number of times I've named an NPC without speaking their name and or title out loud and then being finding out how silly it is just one of those things, right? You have to. Side note for world builders: I know this sounds funny, but say all of the names out loud. If let's go into the bathroom, get out your pad of paper or your notes, or your OneNote notes or your Google Doc or whatever. Say the names out loud to yourself and permutate those names so that you could avoid some of the more comedic things, because there are many fictional names that by accident sound like, oh, I don't know, different bits and pieces of someone's genitalia, making references to some pop culture event that happened within a few months ago or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not that people aren't. Hunt, I think you're being a little far too logical when it comes to people's feelings about the things that they love and hate. Uh, mm-mm. Oh, okay. Regarding preventive DMing, I have a challenge for you. Okay, all right, okay, all right. Here we go. Here we go. Watch the Truman Show, but instead of just enjoying it as a movie, but imagine it as a DM constantly roadblocking the player. Oh shit, yeah. Can I buy a bus ticket? The bus breaks down. Yeah. The NPC keeps reloading the putting the same drinks up on the shelf over and over again, right? What happened in the Truman Show? There was a fire. They had like hazmat crews. They were trying to stop stop Truman from leaving the city. Yeah, yeah. I haven't made that part of the map. Although, listen, we all have players that look at no matter how big your map is, they always keep looking at the edges and figuring out how they can go off the edges of the map. That's a real thing too. Players who are constantly poking at the edges of a map. How many people play video games and the first thing they do is try to get to the edge of the map and push their way through to see what's there? Ada says, yeah, elected officials can't even get the colors right side up. I have no hope they could deal with something as complex as a coat of arms. Yeah. Oh shit. Yeah, you're so right. You're very right. It is the let me go back to the Ukrainian flag here. I'll put it back up here. Yeah, it's this is the appropriate way of displaying it with the blue at the top. At least 99% of the time here that I see around that people have. I mean, listen, there's a lot of people who have friends, family, relatives, and things like that that are from Ukraine too. So I'm not as I can't speak on that because I am an idiot, so I don't have that much knowledge and information about such a thing. I will say that it's place. Let's see if we can do this here. Switch places. The the last thing I will say about the idea of like dragons taking over, wizards taking over your world and whatnot. Mind you, you can absolutely positively build a world where wizards, dragons, demons, whatever, have taken over, and players must navigate this strange concoction of very difficult things. Like it's the classic what if storyline, right? What if in our real world? What if we had a World War III? What if? What if? What if? Actually, I'll see if I can find the. Let's see. See if. Okay, there we go. Here we are. There's a coat of arms, and if you flip it over, it kind of looks like an M. House of M. Try this one for you. It looks like totally fantasy. Huh? Will it let me do? It's not going to let me do it. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's the W. Yep. You're funny. Yeah, it still won't work in Ohio then because of the colors. There's there's a sizable part of the population that can make a difference, that can tell the difference. Then, although I do remember a baking contest where someone made um, a perfect M for Michigan, and it was voted as one of the ugliest cakes, won an ugliest cake competition. Pretty hilarious. Anyway, long story short, I just thought it had some fun talking about House of Dragon and some of the world building that was used in it, and how sometimes as creators we over canonize things that we think like George R. R. Martin and George Lucas and all these other individuals took their writing and their creation so seriously. No, they didn't. They didn't. And uh, even today, there are still people that are super upset at the acolyte, but hurt about episode 5 and the amazing lightsaber duel that happened in it, and how the heads of the lore changed and all this kind of business and stuff. Listen, sometimes when you're a world builder, you have to cut corners and have a little fun and make the world building process enjoyable. And part of that, in making it enjoyable for everyone, is the fact that naming your royalty after Muppets like Grover, Elmo, Kermit, and Oscar, by pointing out some of the simple things, common things, relatable things when it comes to dragons, like feeding them, housing them, using them as a weapon. Do you use them as a weapon? Do you send dragon riders out from your nation knowing that it will leave the place undefended? And if it leaves the place undefended, why do you have so many people around you or close to you that could harm you, that would hurt you if you didn't have dragons? And the dangers of arrogantly displaying to everyone how influential and powerful you are by telling them that I can crush you with my dragons without saying so, and making those individuals go, you know what? I would have liked to be your friend if it wasn't for the fact you keep threatening me with your fucking dragons, right? It's that kind of thing. And, using the Hatfields and McCoys civil war in your world building. Uh, I have an old video that talks about how do you build history in your fantasy, sci-fi, modern day setting, and I said pick some of your favorite intellectual properties and just reskin it. I love the X-Men storylines. I love comic books like Batman and Superman and things like that. The Avengers. I love, even though I haven't delved too much into it, I still tangentially like Doctor Who and Stargate and all of Vampire the Masquerade. I talk about a lot about, and you can incorporate all that into your world building, and it makes great shorthand. Hey, what are the names of the Tullys? And you go, well, they're named after the Muppets. Real easy shorthand to fill a gap in your world. Hey, what's the history of this nation to the north? The X-Men. And now you don't have to call them Professor X, but there could be maybe there's a queen that sits upon a throne and she has great psychic powers, and she's surrounded by a noble court of different individuals, of course, all of them having fantastical abilities related to the X-Men. But that could be the history of one part of your world. Like maybe there was a person that sat upon a throne with great psychic powers that gathered together people who were both touched and tainted with the power of uh, creatures from the outer planes or something like that. Uh, you guys are funny. At least with sports, the stakes are ostensibly excellence, so they wouldn't deploy dragons to win, as that would be cheating. Maybe, although there are many people who, there are even rules in sports that have the rules about what cheating represents in sports itself too. So yeah, there's cheating in sports. They just try not to. You try not to get caught. Um, like stealing the other side's playbook, or having someone spy on the other side of the team to learn what their calls are and things like that. Someone was accused of that, to be honest with you. Have you all read Song of Ice and Fire? Because I always wondered, were they doing it doggy style like books too? Yeah. Yeah. Um, Germ is known to be a bit of a descriptive perv. If it, Now, I have not read the Song of Ice and Fire books, but I have read his Wild Cards series. Let's see. George R. R. Martin, Wild Cards. book series. And in there we go. Let's share this tab out here. So George R. R. Martin is also an editor, and he produced these books known as the Wild Cards. So a number of let's see what wild, because I'm going to ruin the description of this. So uh Canadian American drama series. I didn't realize that. Anyway, Wild Cards is a series of science fiction superhero shared universe anthologies, mosaic novels, and solo novels. They are written by a collection of more than 40 authors, referred to as the Wild Cards Trust, and are edited by George R. R. Martin and Melinda M. Snodgrass. Set largely during an alternate history of post World War II United States, the series follows humans who contracted the wild card virus, an alien virus that rewrites DNA and mutates survivors. Those who acquire crippling and or repulsive physical conditions are known as jokers, while those who acquire superhuman abilities are known as aces, and those few who acquire minor insignificant powers not worthy of being called aces are known as deuces. And in that series, there is a character who literally, thank you, George R. R. Martin, who literally, through tantric sexual magic, gains great psychic abilities by engaging in, shall I say, uh, exceptionally bizarre tantric magic style sexual congress to increase his psychic power by backing up his ejaculative nature back up into his brain. Yeah. Yeah. Wild cards. Yep. Wild cards. Great. Let me see if there's any images here. The different books and things like that. There's a ton of books. A ton of books. Let me go back and see how many books that were written in this series. I didn't read them all. I think I read like maybe 12 of them, and then we'll get out of here. Mm-mm. Bantam books from 87 to 93. Yeah, I read these books. Wild Cards, Aces High, Joker's Wild, Aces Abroad, Down and Dirty. Yep. Double Solitaire, Dealer's Choice. And then Bayan books from 93 to 95 produced 3 books. Went to iBooks, produced 2 more books. Went to Tor Books, produced 13 more books. And then 23 short stories were published through the Tor Books from 2013 2022. And then Bantam Books took some over. And then there's a bunch of contributors, different authors. Many of them not comic book writers. Pat Cadigan, I know that one. Max Gladstone. Stephen Lay. But anyway, bunches of people. Sorry. Shout out to Wild Cards for those who aren't familiar with it. Anyway, let's get out of here. Let's get away from that, guys. Thank you very much for being part of the show. Really appreciate it. Uh, we'll talk about world building and that kind of thing as well. And says there's just too much psychic interference. We're going to have to do full human centipede on this. You know what? Let me break the rules. Let me see if I can find a. Let's do some human centipede. Human. You did it. Images. Human centipede. Mm. There we go. We're gonna put this one up here. I'm gonna blame you. This is all your fault. So before we get out of here, oh my goodness. Mm. It is all your fault. It is all your fault. Tantric is all well and good. I just mean, was it always You know what? In this the third episode of House of the Dragon, they do a little sexploitation in there. I didn't think they would actually go there for House of Dragon uh, because of how much maligned the background sexual congress was happening in the original Game of Thrones, but they went there. These shows are always fun, but now I never want to hold a seance with you. And I was like, no, I'm going to poke out my mind's eye. Guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. Also, if you're interested in becoming one member of the Human Centipede, please contact Anon at gmail.com. No, I'm just fucking around. Guys, thank you so much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for just being here. And please, if you're the type that wants to engage in a human centipede, you don't have to come here. Please, I don't open up your own OnlyFans. Maybe you'll make hundreds and hundreds of cents over there. For those of us here, we're just that are screaming no in our brains as the psychic energy like overwhelms us. Have a great day. We'll talk about some of this kind of stuff tomorrow as well. I hope you are able to consume House of the Dragon. It is an excellently written show, and believe you me, I feel like with new showrunners, new actors, everything. Yeah, Money Part Two, the reprisals. All right, you put that up there, guys. Have a great one. We'll talk tomorrow. Do the damn thing. Whatever. Have a great day. Thank you very much for spending your valuable time here. I hope I can make change. Let's leave here with some fun uh, globules that you can discuss amongst yourselves as to where they came from and where they're headed. Guys, have a great one. I'll see you. Peace.